Hey everyone, today we'll be taking a look at some of the most common mistakes we've been seeing lately out of low elo supports. We'll be primarily seeing high gold play, but of course these concepts will apply to anyone below that elo, and we'll also be giving more advanced solutions to their mistakes that we almost never see even diamond or masters level players doing. So no matter what your elo is, we'll have you covered here. Anyway, let's jump straight into it with this Leona Ezreal versus Thresh Vayne lane. And we'll be starting with Leona's POV, though we'll be looking at mistakes from both support players here throughout this clip. The first thing that we see is Leo and Ezreal sitting in the river brush here after minions meet, presumably attempting a fake leash. We really just do not like the fake leash and hope to almost never see it again. First off, what's the cost? Well, naturally you aren't at the wave right away and able to make choices about what to do with it, which is just generally bad. You're losing out on options. Second, look at the wave here. It's very hard for Leona to do anything at this point. She can't really auto, maybe only once without using an execute, which we've talked a lot about wanting to save for the second wave if possible. So she just really can't hardly auto the wave or fight for the push at all. She's just stuck there. So we know the cost. What's the gain? Well, almost always nothing. For this game, an example, Shen walks into lane later than they do, missing health and energy. I'm not sure anyone is fooled here. Even if no one else on your team leashes and obviously gives it away, the benefits of this are extremely low. The likelihood that the enemy team makes assumptions based on your trickery and that your jungler abuses those assumptions, yeah, just very unlikely in solo queue, unlike getting an advantage from having the push early, which they could have guaranteed here. Anyway, with that little rant out of the way, we can see that, yeah, Leona is just kind of useless, running around doing nothing for the entirety of the first wave. Only because Thresh totally AFKs as well do we see the lanes hit level 2 at the same time. We've talked a lot about this, but in Thresh's position here, you don't want to overpush to the point where you're hurting your ability to slow push and build and crash the wave, but you can't just completely not hit the wave and allow the enemy lane to hit level 2 at the same time when they have no right to. Then, Thresh really decides to just go for it, flashing in, finding the double flay. Eventually, pretty randomly, it turns out that the mid lane Trist has roamed down, and this results in a 1-for-2 trade from Thresh. Now, we don't want to talk too much about his decision to go in here, but what I do want to point out again is that they should have had the level 2 advantage off the fake leash nonetheless, at which point this play would have been way better and way cleaner. Anyway, jumping back to Leona's POV, she respawns after the bot lane fight. What would you do at this point if you were her? Take a few seconds to think. If you said to run straight mid, nice job. Trist should be running back there soon, Ahri is pushing, and Echo is nearby. So this is just a great look at a gank roam. And of course, Ezreal will be recalling any second now, so there's no reason at all to be bottom by yourself. Instead, we see Leona doing kind of a halfway thing, running between mid and bottom. Again, there's zero reason to lean toward bottom at all right now. Just remember that Leona died almost 10 seconds earlier than Vayne, and you can use this, knowing how long it would take you to reach lane, to know whether or not Ez has time to push before being threatened. In this case, he definitely does. And we can see that despite her extremely inefficient pathing, she's still almost there in time for this play where Echo ends up using flash to follow Ahri's flash and still goes down. Had Leo been there for the play, it definitely could have made a big difference in how this turned out. Anyway, what would you do next here as Leona? It's kind of awkward because Ez still hasn't based, but will be in just a second. Take a moment to think. So Hector said that his plan here would be to simply move up into the Raptor brush here and simply wait for Ahri to return, then dive her again. We know Trist will be pushing because it's Trist. Ahri just flashed, Tristana has a ton of burst damage and ignite, and if you kill Ahri when there's a wave built crashing into her, it's GG for the assassin. Again, this is all totally fine because Ez is basing so late. Ahri will get back to lane well before Ezreal will, so there's plenty of time. Oh, and we know that Mundo is top. We saw him on 2 wards clearing bot at the start of the game, so he'll have rotated to topside, meaning only Thresh can find Leo in the jungle, which is obviously not a threat. Instead, Leona just drops a ward and ends up wandering aimlessly for a very long time. You can see how lost she is. We can see that Ahri gets back well before Ez, and with a decent sized wave crashing perfectly on time. If Leo was there and just walked at her with Q, she's dead. Even if Leona somehow died during the dive, it would be totally worth it with Ahri losing the wave. Anyway, let's jump back a few seconds and swap over to Thresh's POV off his respawn. What's his wave state going to be when he gets back? Take a second, this one should be easy. If you said slow pushing out away from them off the bounce, yeah, Ez got off a clean crash, so that is what we're going to see. Now, how should this simple fact influence Thresh's buy? Once again, take a second. If you said it's extra important for him to grab a pink ward, really nice job. They're going to be pushing out slowly with no wards currently down, and neither of them have flash. This is easily one of the most dangerous moments where you're the most exposed to ganks in the bot lane. Instead of buying a control ward though, Thresh picks up a cloth armor, not at all what we would suggest. Then when he gets back to lane, he pretty quickly drops his trinket ward in the tri-brush, the wave continues to push, quickly more or less invalidating that ward, and sure enough, the enemy jungler drops by for the easy setup. So just remember that when you're coming back from base to a wave that will be pushing away, that's often a time to be extra wary of ganks and really prioritize vision. Skipping forward about a minute and jumping back to Leona, we see they're just about to finally crash this wave. It took a while since Leo was AFK and Ez isn't the fastest pusher. And what we want to talk about here is Swifty priority. Right now, Leona has almost exactly 600 gold, and if you can get a clean base for your Swifties, we really recommend doing so as they'll just upgrade your character pretty significantly. Your ability to roam, collapse, engage, etc. Everything your character wants to do will be leveled up. So while we would normally praise a support who, on full health and mana, is choosing to be on the map instead of recalling, we want to point out that in this case, we do think it's the wrong choice. And obviously this is a bit anecdotal, but had Leona recalled right away, she would have had a really good roam timing. At which point topside was looking like a pretty good spot to be, as he's low on HP and about to start pushing out, Jack's coming back to lane soon. This is a great time to move and hover your laner to allow them to crash and reset, or just be there in case a play breaks out. Again, Ez is going to be basing and they crashed, so the wave will bounce back where he can farm safely under tower, so it's totally fine to leave him alone for a bit. We won't bore you, but we did the math, and had Leona followed this line, he would have been right on time to stop this fight topside that resulted in a 2-for-0 for the enemy team, which is a huge deal for such snowbally champs as Jax and Mundo. So looking back on the first 7 minutes here, both supports repeatedly made huge mistakes or just missed great opportunities for advantages. If you can play well on support and get your fundamentals down, you'll have more impact than 99% of support players do below Diamond. Anyway, let's jump on to our next game, once again joining with some high gold gamers. And we have the classic Xayah Rakan versus Leona Tristana. For this game, we'll just be sticking with Rakan's POV. And early on in this lane, there isn't a ton that we want to talk about, so we'll just move somewhat quickly through it so that we don't lose out on too much context, as it is just a short bit of gameplay. Neither lane gets the clear level 2, but a bit later, Leona finds a decent engage, starting the fight and nearly picking up the kill as Xayah wasn't ready for that second Q. No one ever expects the cooldown to be that short. The lane calms down for just a bit, but then Leona finds another engage and yikes. Not ideal from Rakan there, as he kind of sort of has the right idea, but just doesn't understand how the champions interact, leading to his ADC's death. Thankfully, he gets the return kill. But what would you do at this point here? Take a second to think. If you said to push, nice job. However, there's a bit more going on here that we should explore, so let's do that. First, you generally want to push because these minions are going to die well before Xayah gets back, as it's already pushing anyway. And if you can crash the wave, that will result in the most farm for Xayah when she gets back, because the wave will bounce back to her and collect up for her. However, the potential issue we're facing here is that this incoming wave isn't too far off, and you're a level 3 Rakan, not exactly a monster wave pusher. So, what if you don't get the wave crashed in time? Isn't that bad? Well, let's just make sure that doesn't happen. For this, let's jump back to a strategy we saw in last week's video from Hector as he was playing Lulu in Masters. Check out what he does here as he runs into more or less the same problem, where he's not sure if the wave will crash, so he just drags it, tanking tower for a moment and easily allowing the wave to reach tower. Rakan could definitely consider the same play here as the enemy jungler started bot side, and it's highly likely that he would be up top by now. Instead though, he just pushes out and the wave doesn't cleanly crash, which causes Xayah to lose multiple last hits and be pushed up in lane when she gets back, instead of being able to just sit back and wait for it to come to her. Anyway, Rakan comes back into lane after resetting, and we see this situation here. What's your goal / plan right now as Rakan? Take a second to think. If you said to just stay back and let that pushing wave come in and crash, nice job. We're already down a kill to Trist. That combined with the enemy lane having wave control is just a huge red flag to not fight and either let that wave hit tower so that it'll bounce back and we can have wave control, or freeze if it's possible. Anyway, let's watch the lane play out for about 15 seconds. See if you can find the moment that tilted Hector off the face of the earth and had him ranting. Go! What do you think? Did you spot it? So if you said executing that cannon minion, great job. And you should know why, right? We just talked about wanting to let the wave come to them, so this is just a huge disconnect from that plan. All this did is elongate this losing position, as we can see here, as the wave remains in this mostly neutral spot, but with the enemy team having item advantage and wave control for quite a while, just slowly coming in as Xayah has to be scared on every CS and very narrowly avoided the deadly engage. Thankfully though, about 20 seconds later, Leona looks for a pretty bad engage here near the tower where, first off, Trist can't really do much, but also they are exposed to ganks, and sure enough, Nocturne is there for the punish. But I want to highlight what comes next. It looks like he considers moving mid, which could be fine, but as the next wave comes, we really want to start thinking about maximizing our tempo off this play. This means mainly two things. The first of which, very obviously, is pushing the wave as quickly as possible, which he's obviously not doing here. He really messed this up already, executing that low melee minion, not maximizing his autos, and not even Wing either. This for sure cost them a not insignificant amount of time, especially not saving execute for cannon. But the second thing that we want to reiterate, something we've touched on in the past, is getting your recall off slightly before your ADC as they're finishing the push. And we can see that Rakan waited until this wave was totally pushed out before even starting to think about recalling, then doing it very inefficiently. In this specific case with Xayah Rakan, this is extra important as your early recall becomes hers. However, even without that, getting back 5 to 10 seconds earlier can allow you some nice extra buffer time for roaming and vision with more or less no cost, as long as you don't finish your recall too early before your ADC fully pushes out and they get collapsed on or something like that, but this is very easy to avoid. Just time your recall finishing with them finishing the push. By the way, you should know where these videos come from. Our hyper improvement platform, SkillCapped, is by far the best place to be if you want to actually improve at League of Legends. You can input your rank before signing up to see where we think you'll climb to. If you don't reach that rank while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund. That's like a gym membership guaranteeing that you'll get ripped. We offer this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't, then you shouldn't pay for it. So be sure to check us out after this. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. We hope that you all enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.